All right, well, we are 4 minutes in, so let's get started. So welcome to the latest Fireside Chat webinar series hosted by ZenBooks. And this session, we're talking about some employment law and some health benefits, dental benefits, all kind of benefits for the group, for your companies. I think it's such a great topic. I think that as an accountant, we have loads of clients who have no idea how this kind of stuff works, especially when it comes to employment law. We have to refer back to the lawyer all the time. And yeah, I think this will be a really insightful conversation. So a few little quick housekeeping stuff. So first, there's the Q&A button at the bottom in your controls, so you can submit questions there. You can also submit questions through the chat. I will be monitoring that to see people's questions. This whole thing's recorded as well, so you'll be able to watch this thing later. And for the people who are joining us watching the recording, now you know that obviously there is a recording. There's only one slide today just showing this. Otherwise, it'll just be our faces. We want to have this really conversation, questions, kind of interactive. So basically, that's the whole point of a fireside chat, is that we want questions right away. So we don't want you to hold on to your questions until the end and whatnot. Like, let's get this conversation going and let's get some insights here. So yeah, today's conversations with two great people. We've got Ian Keith from 360 Health Benefits, who's an absolute specialist in the group benefits field. He's very well known by other industry professionals, and he's known as the guy for group benefits. So very fortunate to have him on the call. And we also have Sasha Wilms, who's an associate lawyer at Kelly Santini, specializes in employment law matters and helps actually both sides. So helps the employer and the employee. So really good to get both sides of the spectrum there, and helps on litigation of those matters. So she can certainly argue your case quite well. So really fortunate to have Sasha on the call as well. So I've got a couple questions lined up. And so I know that there's business owners on the call who are going to have their own questions and they're going to want to chime in, but I wanted to have a few kind of lined up so that we can kind of have those as a default. But just chime in as you have questions, and I'll coordinate all of that. So yeah, I thought maybe we could start with a couple of the more rule-based kind of questions of like, how exactly does this work or whatnot? And then we can kind of dive into more operational, situational questions and kind of next steps. So so kind of just rule-based. So this one's a little bit more for Ian. So can a small employer get some health benefits, or do you have to be kind of like a little bit on the medium side? Like, what's that kind of threshold?
Thanks, Eric. And hi, everybody. There was, back in the 90s, 20 plus years ago, a feeling that you had to have at least 3 or 4 employees before you could get a proper benefit plan. And I can tell you right now that there's options down as low as single employee corporations that you can get actually a decent benefit plan. The key being is that you can get these plans now without having to fill out a medical questionnaire. So it's a brave new world, and there's options for basically as small a company as it comes. So one person show, you can get proper coverage for yourself and your family.
Okay. And then I guess, would it turn out to be pretty expensive if there's only 1 or 2? Like, I guess there's less people to average it across, so there's a higher risk level. Like, how would that work out? Like,
yeah, I think when it comes to benefit plans, the general rule is that the more people that you have insured together under one contract, the cheaper it is.
Okay.
But age does have a big factor. So if you have a single person who's 30, their costs are going to be lower than a group of 10 people who are all in their 50s and 60s. So it does matter quite a bit about age. Age and size both matter quite a bit.
Okay. Okay, cool. And then I guess this question's a little bit for both of you. So once an employer decides, let's do some health benefits, can they stop? Or like, is that something they have to keep doing forever, right? Because I don't know if there's any implications with like the employment contracts where it's like people signed up thinking I'm getting health benefits, and then all of a sudden you stop. Maybe Sasha, you can chime in on this one first.
Sure. Yeah. And good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining. So Eric, you're completely right. The starting point would be to look at the employment contract and whether there is a right within the employment contract for the employer to modify or eliminate the benefits entirely. So if that's not included in the employment contract and the employee sees their benefits as a key component of their compensation package, which most people probably do, the risk is that if you just cut them after providing benefits, is that an employee or employees could bring claims for constructive dismissal. So constructive dismissal is where the employer unilaterally makes a change to a key term of the employment agreement, whether that's a verbal employment agreement or a written employment agreement, which the employee does not consent to. And the employee can then treat the contract as being repudiated by the employer, and basically, they would essentially resign, but it's not considered a resignation, it's considered a termination, and they'd be entitled to a severance package for the termination.
Wow.
So that would be the big risk with cutting benefits.
Okay. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen here so we can see our faces a little bit better. And then I guess, Ian, so what's the practicality behind that? Like, are there maybe ways of like having the employer pay a smaller portion over time? Or is it like, I guess, like, do you see changes that are kind of like minimal, just not enough to kind of create like a big problem? Like, because I'm worried for business owners who are like, let's do this now, but if it becomes financially not viable anymore, like, what have you seen as an option?
So I should state that these group insurance contracts are you're never locked in. So you could start a plan January 1st and cancel it at the end of January. That issue that Sasha and I actually spoke about earlier this week about employment contracts never really crossed my mind. And it's mostly because we just don't see it very often where a business owner will start a plan and then cancel it outright. I mean, it does happen, but it's far more common that if the cost starts to go up, that business owners will cut back on the coverage. And I don't believe that would contravene the employment contract, because the contract might say benefits, but it won't say you have to have 100% coverage for prescription drugs or something like that. So it is my preferred route of least resort, or my last resort option is to cut back the benefits, and the absolute last resort would be to cancel them completely. I personally, in my career, have not seen this happen very often, where a business owner will start a plan and then cancel it outright when the costs get to be too high per se.
Right.
But you can always shift the contribution as far as how much the employer pays or how much the employees pay. That's definitely an option we see happening fairly often. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I guess when you're signing up your staff for health benefit or for group benefits, does everyone need to be signed up, or can you have like different levels, like one for like the executives or the managers and one for the rest of the employees? Like what are the requirements there?
So you definitely can split a benefit plan into perhaps better coverage for executives and then decent coverage for employees. What we see primarily is most plans have the same coverage for everybody. And the concept of group insurance is that you don't have to fill out a medical, you don't have to be healthy, pre-existing conditions are covered. But the flip side is that the insurance company will want everybody enrolled in the plan. The sick will offset the good, and that's the sharing of risk, if you will, from the insurer's point of view. So most, if not all, insurers will say, if you have 10 people that work full time, 10 people have to be on the plan. And I should stipulate that in being in Ottawa, every second person, it seems like, has federal government health and dental insurance. You can be on a benefit plan, but you don't have to take the health and dental benefits if you already have that through your spouse. And that's pretty much a basic thing in benefits. But a lot of people will say, if their employer offers it to them, they'll say, I don't need it, I've got it through my spouse. True, you may have health and dental, but you definitely don't have life insurance and disability insurance through your spouse's benefit plan. And that's where we get into those discussions with our clients.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's huge. And I guess maybe more of a question for Sasha here, and I think we're moving into the situational stuff, but you were talking about some employees that are higher risk and some that are lower risk, and so it's kind of a brutal question, but like, what if one of your staff members gets very sick, and there's going to be very expensive medication, and that that's going to come back onto you, right? Like, so if you know that, can you downgrade some of the like the actual coverage? And I guess like the example I had was like, someone has cancer and the cancer medication is unbelievably expensive, and there is the practicality of a small business owner. So how does that kind of work?
So essentially under the Ontario Human Rights Code and also under the Ontario Employment Standards Act, there's laws around anti-discrimination. So employees need to be treated equally regardless of their age, their gender, whether or not they have a disability. And disability captures a broad spectrum of conditions, including an illness like cancer. So because of these laws that prohibit employers from basically treating an employee adversely because they have a disability, an employer cannot do so. And if they did, they would risk a human rights claim for discrimination, because they wouldn't be treating an employee an employee who's sick is the same as an employee who's not sick by limiting their benefits.
Okay. And I think maybe Ian, you can elaborate on this, because I think from what I understand, there is like a pooling of sorts for anything that's like gets exponentially expensive. Like, is that what I understand? Like there's kind of like, if there's drugs that are completely out of control expensive, there's kind of like a pooling within plans, right? So that it doesn't directly impact your rates as much.
Yeah, and I would argue that an employee getting diagnosed with cancer and needing $50,000 medication, I would strongly argue that that is why you have a benefit plan in the first place.
Right, absolutely.
And as you know, when you start a benefit plan, you'll start out paying X, whatever that happens to be, and your future costs will be based on how much or how little you actually claim through the plan. And what you were mentioning is that if, for example, an employee had a $50,000 drug claim, you can imagine that what that would do to your monthly rates that you pay.
Right.
So every insurance contract that we set up has a built-in insurance in the insurance, in that anything over $10,000 that's claimed by one employee or a family member, anything above 10,000 is removed from the calculations to determine your monthly costs. So that's your protection. So the first 10,000 will actually affect your rates, but regardless of whether that is $40,000 more in this example or $540,000 more, if you need an expensive medication, the plans that we set up by and large are unlimited for a reason. It's to cover the cost of that medication regardless of what it is. And we would never, ever, like Sasha said, we can't and we don't and we wouldn't ever recommend reducing coverage on someone when they need it the most.
Right. And that's the whole point of insurance, is to average out that risk so that, it's a even risk for all business owners that are on these plans, right? So that these kind of situations can occur and the employees can get those benefits without negatively impacting the employers and everyone else, right? So, yeah, that's great. I guess a little bit more situation or tactical kind of questions, but so Ian, like, do you think that employers need or should competitively have health benefits? So not necessarily need like, legislatively need, but like in order to compete as a good employer, do you feel like it's something that a decent employer should have? Like,
and I would answer that question differently 5 years ago. Because 5 years ago, I would say that it's mostly medium to high income earners that are harder to find. So you want to attract and retain those employees by putting a benefit plan in place. But what we've seen, especially in the last 2 years, is that the industries we work with are no longer just white collar or specialized manufacturing or the higher income earners. We're seeing a lot of interest and putting new plans in place for industries in retail, daycare, pot shops. I mean, there's all kinds of industries, landscaping, that just there was no demand there because the employers in those industries never really had a problem finding someone to work for $15 to $20 an hour. What we're seeing now is that those employers are also competing for staff and they're trying to attract and retain good people. So we are getting way more inquiries in the last 2 years for, the industries that were typically ignored in benefits. So do I think it's important? It would really depend on the last time you tried to staff a job, or you lost an employee because they left for equal pay but a job that offered benefits. If these things are happening to you, that's the best time to put a plan in place. That's the reason to put a plan in place, to stop people from leaving and to be able to get more people to join your company and stay.
Right. Okay. And then Sasha, is that something you've seen too? Because I know you help with a lot of like employment contracts, and you see that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think just throughout the pandemic, there's been a lot of movement in the market, and like, you know, we see just restaurants or retail stores like really looking for employees because you know, people I think are just trying to move to something that's more stable, that will provide them with benefits. I mean, in Ottawa, it's always the draw to the government, which has an excellent benefit plan, right? So I think in order for businesses to stay competitive and compete with employers like the government, it's definitely a good idea to consider it seriously.
Okay.
Yeah, like we can't match the federal government pension plan, but we can certainly match their benefit plan. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And then I guess from that regard too, like, because there's some employers that just offer those benefits but don't pay for it, right? Like, or they'll pay for a portion of it. So have you seen, like, what's the trend that you've seen where the employer pays 100% of all group benefits, or is it like a 50% or 25%? Like what have you seen as like a trend recently?
So the standard in the industry was always 50-50. So you had employees, if the monthly bill is $100, each the employee and the employer would pay 50 and everything's great. What we've seen now, again, as labor markets tighten up, we're seeing a lot more plans that are fully funded by the employer, likely to compete against the government, which I believe is a similar type of setup. So we're seeing a lot more fully funded plans. And what I've seen more often in the past 12 months is that when there's a big rate increase at the annual renewal, instead of passing the full rate increase onto the employees, I'm seeing the businesses absorb the increase. So instead of a 50-50, maybe it goes to 75-25. So we're seeing that shift more and more, because obviously the more the employer pays towards the plan, the more it will be appreciated by the employees. And it's just that old 50-50, it's probably a good starting point still, but it's shifting more towards employers are taking on more of the costs.
Interesting. And Sasha, I guess you've seen similar
setup. Yeah, I would agree. Like in a lot of the employment contracts that I've been drafting, it's often the employer is fully responsible, or if there is a division, the employer will be paying a greater percentage of that.
Okay. And then I guess if ever there's a situation where you've got an employee, or you got a bunch of employees that are full-time and then they're moving to part-time, right? So are you expected to continue those health benefits? Is that the same contract, or does the contract get amended? Like, is that a way to kind of like help reduce your costs, or are you still open to a lawsuit there?
So there is the option of amending the contract. So what that would entail is basically the existing contract would come to an end at a certain point, and you'd create a new contract for the part-time hours, which doesn't have the benefits. And the employees are entitled to a certain amount of notice that their existing contract is coming to an end. And the amount of notice that they're entitled to, that period might be quite long. It's basically their common law reasonable notice period of termination. Okay. And it's going to be based on 4 factors, which is their length of employment, their age, the character of employment, and the availability of other similar employment. So those periods can be, if it's an employee that's been there for 20 years or more, like the highest end of the common law reasonable period is about 24 to 26 months. So there is the ability to change, but that being said, like the employee might be entitled to quite a long notice period before those changes can take effect. That being said, if it's an employee that's relatively new, they've only been there for a few years, maybe their notice period is just several months before those changes can take effect. Another option is that you can prepare a new employment contract and offer consideration for that new employment contract.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And so that would be what we usually see is that in the way of a signing bonus. So if the employee agrees to the changes and they agree to the consideration being offered, the signing bonus, then they can sign the new contract and it can take effect much sooner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. No, that's really good. And I can certainly see situations where businesses kind of like they go through cycles, right? Like sometimes you have really good years and then sometimes the revenues are just down. You got to let people go and cut somewhere. So I can see kind of cycles happening. And what I'm hearing is that essentially as long as you agree with the employee, if everything's on good terms, then that can work, right? So
Yeah.
okay. And then
If I could,
yeah, go
add
ahead.
on this, most insurance contracts that we work with require a minimum of 20 hours a week on average
Oh,
to be
okay.
part of the plan.
Yeah.
So because that's kind of right in the 2.5 days a week kind of threshold, we can pretty much amend our contracts to either deliberately include those part-time if they've shifted from part-time to or full-time to part-time, or we can change our contract to deliberately exclude people from benefits by raising maybe that minimum from 20 hours a week to 30. So we can be flexible to meet whatever situations that a business is going through, whether they're, trying to exclude or include employees. We can do both.
Okay. And I guess like because it's all about like the staffing and changes and stuff and how that kind of impacts, right? And one of those things that could have a really big impact is if there's an employee that requires like an extended leave of absence, right? Like if they are on medical leave, maternity leave, paternity leave, like so what about the employee contributions that they would pay, like the premiums and during that leave, right? Like how does that work?
Mm.
Do you want me to go?
Sure, go ahead.
So maternity, paternity, pretty straightforward. You have the option of keeping your benefits while you're off or putting them on suspension while you are off. And if you, we always recommend that you keep the benefits, especially for maternity leave. This is by far a significantly still a risky situation in your life by bringing a child into the world. So why would you ever cut your health and disability benefits at that time? But some people do. Some people, because that person that goes on maternity or paternity leave can keep their benefits, but if they're paying half the cost, they need to keep paying half the cost every month. It used to be post-paid checks. Now I'm sure it's e-transfer.
Right.
But you do have the right to put those benefits on suspension while you're on a mat leave or paternity leave. And a leave of absence is slightly different where it's actually pretty similar. The leave of absence, you can keep your benefits for, let's say, 4 to 6 months. I probably won't include travel and I probably won't include disability, but you can keep the other coverage for that period. If you have a leave of absence that's longer than that, it's pretty hard to get the benefits extended in that situation.
Okay. And Sasha, did you have anything else to add on that one?
Yeah, no, I'm just echoing what Ian was saying. Like it is under the Employment Standards Act, like there is that right when you're on a job protected leave of absence, like maternity leave or parental leave, there is a right to continue with your benefits. And if the employee chooses not to continue with the benefits, it's important to get that in writing, just so there's no dispute down the road. And that it's clear that it was the employee's decision that they do not want to continue contributing to premiums throughout their leave.
Right. Yeah. Document everything. that's the lawyer's advice here. Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I can certainly see as well especially in the last 2 years, like with the ups and downs of businesses, some businesses had to temporary lay people off, right? Kind of like you're out of work for a little bit, you may or may not come back. And so how would that work, right? Like, do they get still some benefits during that time? Do they choose to like have benefit? Like, do the employees choose to have benefits? Do they still contribute some way, even though they just don't have income now? So you take them out of a job and you ask them to still pay for health benefits without their approval, like, so yeah, how does that work? Like,
So generally, a temporary layoff, if it's less than 13 weeks, an employer is not required to continue benefits. I mean, that being said, like, during the pandemic, if people were being laid off, like it might not be a great time to be cutting health benefits. So it might just be practically a good idea to continue them. But if the layoff is shorter than 13 weeks, technically the employer doesn't have to. But then if it's between 13 to 35 weeks, then the employer should be making substantial payments. And this can include under the benefit plan, substantial payments to the employee, which can include under the benefit plan, in order for that layoff to not be considered a constructive dismissal.
Okay, so you have to know when you do lay off the staff, how long that layoff is going to be. And then
Right.
if that layoff is going to be past that threshold, that's an important metric. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There's clear timelines under the Employment Standards Act. But that being said, those timelines have been sort of put on pause throughout the pandemic. So there's been new regulations that have been introduced that basically allow an employer to put someone on a layoff for longer than the usual minimum period of time, if that layoff is for reasons related to COVID-19. So if they've seen a downturn in business due to the pandemic, for example, and they need to cut people's hours or lay people off, then they are allowed to extend beyond the typical amount of time. That being said, there's like a deadline right now. It's actually end of July 2022, so July 31st. Yeah. And so, but this period, it's called the COVID-19 period, has been extended by the government. I don't know how many times, like quite a few times already. So it's possible that, I mean, apparently, we're in the 7th wave now, so it's possible that could be extended again, which gives employers a bit more flexibility and having longer layoff periods than what was previously acceptable.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And then I guess, I have a couple questions on like the, actionable items if someone wanted some health benefits, right? Like, so maybe Ian, you can give us some ballpark figures on costs, right? Like, is this like $1,000 per employee per month, or is it like 100? And I know it's going to be based on various factors like the age and stuff, but I think it's important for people who don't currently have health benefits to get a ballpark figure of like, is this something I can even remotely afford, right?
Yeah, and I've always used ballpark figures of 3 to 6% of salary, as far as if you look at your global monthly payroll, and you take 3 to 6% of that monthly total payroll, that's roughly what your benefit plan will cost for a typical plan. Now I say typical, and I do this, it's because you could start a plan with just life insurance and disability insurance. That would probably be not even 1% of payroll. But when you think of benefits, you also think of health and dental. Most people outside our industry, if you ask someone about benefits, it's dental, vision, massage. That's what they want. They don't think of disability and unlimited drug coverage being important, whereas I see those two as the most important. So 3 to 6% of payroll is a good estimation as far as a range of what the total is. But with benefits, you have normally three costs, 3 levels of cost. You have single person, so no spouse, no children; family coverage, which can be spouse, common law spouse, and or 1 child or 10 kids. It's always the same price. And then there's a third cost of someone who doesn't need health and dental because they have it through their spouse. So that's kind of 3 levels. And if you had a group of everyone who was in their 20s and they were all single, okay, so you're probably talking more like 2% of payroll. But 3 to 6 is kind of a broad number, and that's why I use those broad terms. And when we say, well, what's it actually going to cost me, and say, okay, I need a little bit of information from you, and I need about a week and a half, and I can show you exactly what it would cost with company X or insurance carrier Y.
Okay, and then I guess like you specifically, like you're in this field, and I guess you are not tied to any kind of specific health benefits provider, right? Like, so are you getting quotes? Is that what I understand as well? Like you're kind of shopping around, kind of like a mortgage broker then, right? Like,
it's very much like an independent mortgage broker, and there's very, very few of us left in the industry who are true independent brokers. And I say that because there's probably 7 or 8 major insurance providers, benefit providers in Canada. We have clients with each of them. When we have a new client who's looking for quotes, we always send the request to all the insurers, take the results, and we prepare our reports based on like the top 3. So here are the top 3 options for you. Yeah, and that's
yeah, and I guess like when you shop them around, like I would imagine you don't necessarily want just the cheapest either, right? Because then the coverage is going to be very, very limited, and employees may not even get any benefit from it, right? So you kind of have to do that dance of like, it's not the cheapest, it's not the most expensive, and what kind of value am I getting for my money? And so you're kind of looking at all those metrics, right?
we definitely used to always recommend the cheapest, especially when
Oh,
you're
okay.
starting a plan. But
Yeah.
what we
Okay.
found now is that most plans up until the last couple of years, you would start it, and then the best you could maybe get is like a year and a half of those rates will be valid for a year and a half. But after a year and a half, then you have a renewal, and your cost could go up by 50% or down by 20. Like there's no way to know what your future costs are going to be until you actually start a plan.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I guess, Sasha, should the business owners reach out to their employment lawyer preemptively, like if they're thinking of getting health benefits, or is it more like if there's a problem, then they reach out to their lawyer, right? Like,
I would definitely recommend reaching out preemptively, because if the employer doesn't currently have employment contracts, then as we mentioned at the beginning, like that's kind of the first starting point to see what an employer's rights are, and whether they have flexibility in changing the benefit plan, because it would be a good idea to ensure that before benefits are put in place, that everybody has a contract which states that the benefits are, they're at the employer's discretion, and the employer has the ability to change the benefits or eliminate them. Because that will help reduce the risk of something like a constructive dismissal claim down the road.
okay, no, that makes sense. And I guess, Ian, I've heard of these health spending accounts as well, right? There's kind of like instead of kind of averaging out the cost, you can do it on a cost recovery basis, right? Like it's kind of like a cost plus model or something. Maybe kind of walk us through that as an option.
So traditionally, the benefit plans have always been, you set it up, it costs you X, and that price remains stable for, like I said, usually a year and a half, and then it changes. So these healthcare spending accounts, or otherwise known as HSAs, it's not insurance. So essentially, it's like, picture you essentially at January 1st say to all your employees, you can all have $1,000 to spend on anything that's health and dental related. If you want to spend it all on prescription sunglasses, go ahead. If you want to spend it all on massage, go ahead. So you're giving everyone this allocation at the start of the year that they can use. And instead of the insurance traditional plan where it's these things are covered, no one's tracking what you spend as much as you need, the healthcare spending account is very much different, where it says, we really don't care what you spend it on as long as it qualifies under CRA's definition. But here's $1,000 or $2,000, and once it's gone, it's gone. Right. So we do like these ideas, these HSAs, as a supplement, like to add it to a benefit plan, or if a company's just not financially ready to launch a traditional plan, it's a good temporary matter because you're still giving benefits to your staff. It's just that, in my opinion, it's not insurance. Essentially, the corporation is just using a third-party firm to essentially allow their employees' health and dental claims to be corporate expenses. So it's a bit convoluted, but essentially it's not insurance. It's just giving your employee a pot of money to use, and it really doesn't protect against disability or high-cost drugs. So it's nice.
It's better
really
than not having it, but
it's great for some younger groups, because younger employees traditionally don't think about disability or high-cost medications. They want drugs, they want dental, massage, and vision care. Healthcare spending accounts are great because you can spend the full amount on massage or the full amount on vision. It doesn't really have any restrictions on what you can use that money for.
Okay.
Yeah. If I could just jump in, I'm just thinking like that might be beneficial because there's certain exclusions from any benefit plan. So it sounds like, and I don't know, Ian, maybe you can clarify, like this might be like it captures a wider variety of services. Like I'm just thinking my partner right now is having like issues with his jaw, but we looked in both our plans and TMJ is excluded specifically. So I'm wondering if, something like that, there might be more flexibility in these healthcare spending.
Yep. So the traditional benefit plans tell you exactly what's covered, and something like TMJ is a very specialized dental procedure, and only Sun Life really offers coverage for that as far as a standard thing. So with the HSA, it's based on how the CRA defines what you can deduct against your personal taxes for health and dental expenses. So it's very broad. Two good examples we had that we help clients with HSA claims is one, there was an employer or a client of ours who has a severely disabled daughter, and she takes therapeutic horseback riding lessons on a regular basis. You'd never see that covered under a benefit plan, but we put it through the HSA. The other one was a specialized boarding school that deals with a specific medical ailment in upstate New York that was $60,000+ a year. And we were able to put that through, or a part of that through a healthcare spending account. So it's very, very broad what you can do. And one last point I should about HSAs, we see it a lot with single shareholder, single employee corporations. Doctors, lawyers, accountants, someone who has their own independent business, independent contractor, and they're paying themselves a salary to their corporation. Why not set up a healthcare spending account so that your business can pay for your family's health and dental expenses and write it off as a corporate deduction, as opposed to you spending your after-tax dollars on those expenses?
Yeah, for sure. Because the corporate and personal tax rate combined is going to likely be much higher than the 15% on medical expenses on a personal tax return. So that makes a lot of sense for sure. Ian, is that basically the same thing as the self-insurance? Like, is that the whole HSA kind of model is the self-insurance that I've heard about? Yeah.
It is essentially self-insurance. So if you own a corporation, you're taking a salary and you're an independent person, you can't take your corporate credit card and go and pay for your dental visit.
Yeah. Right.
CRA won't allow that direct. So you have to go through a third party. So this is essentially an HSA is a third party company that is essentially allowing you to, for lack of a better term, launder your personal health and dental expenses and turn them into legitimate corporate deductions. And there are stipulations and rules that we have to follow that we set these up properly. But we've done so many of them, and we're doing them every week, really, because it's really, if you own a business and you're taking a salary and you're incorporated, it's a no-brainer. Like, why would you ever use your own after-tax dollars when you can use deductible corporate dollars?
Right. Okay, and that makes sense. And so, Sasha, are there any other kind of like things that you've seen in your world that relates to health benefits, like issues that employers are having or employees are coming forward complaining about some of the coverage or some of the issues that their employers are having? Like, is there anything else we should discuss there?
I mean, I think we've touched on a lot of different issues. I mean, if we talked about the fact that if an employee is on a job protected leave, their benefits should be continued. Like, I've sometimes seen issues with employers where they're not getting those payments from the employee. So obviously that's an issue if their portion of the premiums is not being paid. Nothing else really jumps to mind right now. I mean,
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And Ian, is there anything else that we may have missed that you think people should be aware of that we didn't talk about right now? I don't know.
Yeah, so I want to just address one issue, is that setting up a benefit plan is great if you're the employer, but what no one will ever tell you when you set up a benefit plan is that you are setting up a huge amount of potential risk if the plan is not managed correctly. And let me just give you an example that I said earlier, that the insurance companies will, they will mandate and want you to make sure that everybody is on the plan. But let's just say that you have one employee who's just a real pain and they don't want to be part of the plan at all. It's going to cost them $10 a month and they're absolutely refusing to be part of it. You can try to get them to sign a form to say that I was offered the plan, but I don't want it. But what happens to that employee if 6 months down the road They get diagnosed with major illness. They have to leave work indefinitely. They need a huge high-cost medication. If you don't manage the plans correctly, you are opening yourself up and your corporation to liability in the future. By making, if we follow the rules, and that's one thing I want to stipulate, that if you're running a business in plumbing or HVAC, you're probably not a benefit plan expert. So deal with one, use a broker who is an expert, and I'm not the only one in town. There's probably about 30 or so pros in town. Use a pro. Don't use a broker / agent who is a brand new agent with one of the career shops like London Life, or sorry, Sun Life or Freedom 5 or Canada Life, whatever they're called now.
Yeah.
Who is able to do benefits, but is by no means an expert, because they're also selling life insurance and investments and critical illness insurance. Choose an expert, get their opinion, and get their help to set up your administration properly, because you may not see it as important whether an employee gets added to the plan in January or March, but it can make a huge difference in liability if the rules are not followed. So work with people that know the rules and that can help you.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think this is huge. I mean, I've learned a lot here. This is good. Okay, well, I think that's all we've got right now. So this is good. Okay, well, thanks to both of you for dropping in, for doing this. This is hugely appreciated. I'm sure all of our business owners and are certainly all appreciating this conversation. We're gonna have this video on our YouTube as well for people to watch later. And I invite both of you to come back anytime. This is fun. Yeah, thanks so much, guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us, Eric.
Yeah,
Really
anytime.
appreciate it.
Bye.
All right, take care.